It was my first introduction really into electronics and diagnosing faults with drives. Lo and behold, 20 years later, it's still going strong. It's a constant battle now because some of the technology they use is 20 years old. We are family. That song always reminds me of MM4.
Hello and welcome to the MICROMASTER Museum podcast, a podcast that celebrates a frequency converter sold more than 5 million times globally. Today, I will be talking to my colleague Stuart from Customer Service, who manages the technical support team in Congleton. My name is Susanne, and I work as a portfolio manager for DI Customer Service with a special interest in retrofit. In previous episodes, we heard about the market launch and early years of the MICROMASTER. Today, we will focus a little more on the differences between the MICROMASTER and SINAMICS. Good afternoon, Stuart, and thank you for your time. I know people in tech support are always very busy. You joined Siemens around 20 years ago. What was your first involvement or role associated to the MICROMASTER?
Hi, Susanne. Yeah, it's going back a long time now for me. So, 1998 I actually started, and I was actually with the first MICROMASTER MMJ and MM2, MICROMASTER 2, and then predominantly MM3. But I remember the first MM4 has been shown in production, and thinking they'll last a few more years, so they'll keep us in a job for a few more years. And lo and behold, 20 years later, it's still going strong. So it's very impressive. But yeah, I do remember the first ones coming off the production line.
And what was your role? What was your involvement with the production process?
For the MM2 and MM3, it was mainly manufacturing and packing and testing of the units. But for MM4, my role was more repairing the drives after test, and also maintenance for the test machines that tested them before they left the factory. So it was my first introduction really into electronics and diagnosing faults with drives. So it was very interesting at the time.
So you're really an expert from the deepest level of the product, which is very interesting to hear. At the moment, we're sort of switching from MICROMASTER to SINAMICS, and we're encouraging our customers to move on. If any of our very loyal MICROMASTER customers were to come to Congleton for factory tour, what would you say are sort of the key aspects comparing a MICROMASTER to present-day SINAMICS? Any thoughts, any observations you've made sort of knowing the product in very much detail?
Yeah, so a lot of the technologies obviously have moved on, driven by other factors, such as people want things cheaper and they want them smaller, and also they want them more reliable. I know for MM4, it's a constant battle now because some of the technology they use is 20 years old, and for an electronics device, that is going some. So some of the new technologies, a lot of this manufacturing is now surface mount technology, whereas MM4 there was a lot more through-hole technology, THT, and they would all be put in manually by hand, so a lot more labour intensive, but also a lot more issues could happen as humans make errors, whereas now a lot more automated in the factory. Some of the technologies now as well, they've moved on. So as I said, the through-hole technology is pretty much gone for ICs. They're all ball grid array BGAs. So these are where the IC have the legs underneath the component and they actually sit on the PCB. And then they're coated, so there's a lot less chance of any dirt or contamination getting on those ICs. So in general, they're more reliable and more robust because the technology has moved on So it's not just Siemens that's moving on, the suppliers of components also move on.
And does it mean that our employees that sort of are part of the manufacturing process and very important, they've also had to learn different skills because the technology is moving on?
Absolutely, yeah. One thing that the MicroMaster and the SINAMICS are is energy-saving devices. So the amount of employees there is still pretty much the same, because as the technology allows them to be more automated, it means the production goes up. So and there's other more skilled workers testing the equipment and diagnosing the more complex equipment. So yeah, it's an interesting space now down in the factory. There's a lot more robots building drives, but there's obviously people behind them to do the maintenance on them.
As mentioned, I think more than 5 million MicroMasters have been sold. And from the discussions I've had over the last few months, I think nobody expected this high number of quantity to be actually produced and coming out of Congleton at the time. So it's a huge success also in terms of quantity and the people behind it making it happen.
Yeah. So the team that worked in Congleton on MM4, I know a lot of them are still there from the original days of when it was first released, and it was very much a family team spirit. Everyone worked together, whether it was in the packing area, in the R&D department, in the test department. They all pulled together and worked well together. And I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why it's been so successful, because they all wanted the product to be a success. They all wanted it to be reliable, and it's proven to be. The efforts that were put in, especially in the early days, have made that product what it is today, and it's still continuing.
Stuart, you've just mentioned how technology has moved on, the manufacturing processes. Could you give us some insights on how the features have changed? There must have been a development in features sort of parallel to the manufacturing side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the SINAMICS range has a lot of extra features and functions compared to MicroMaster. Sometimes we compare the drives, they're all turning a motor, but there's turning a motor and then there's turning a motor. It's a bit like a bike. I recently bought a new bike, and it's got hydraulic disc brakes, carbon fiber. It's made of carbon fiber. It's got electronic gears. It does the same as a normal bike, but it's just the latest technology. And it's the same with the drives. The old drives had vector control, and the new drives have vector control, but it's so much more advanced. So it can actually calculate and work out where the rotor is in the drive, and it then puts out the power that's required to meet the torque. So not only do you get better control of the motor, you also get it being more efficient. So everything nowadays can be run in SLVC, senseless vector control, whereas in MM4 days, a lot of applications would have had to run them in V2F to ensure that they worked correctly. It gives us, as well as energy saving and better positioning, it also means there's less wear and tear on motors and machinery. So it's win-win really for that. And SINAMICS software is very, very good at that. It's one of the key features. But as well as that, it's got extra functionality like safety. Siemens is always striving for better safety in machinery and in technology. And there's also tier automation. It's all linked in with the PLCs, programmable logic controllers. So it's all one unit, and it's all striving towards better automation in the world. And that's only going one way at the moment, which is everything's more automated.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's our customers and their applications that have the benefits from this new technology. So that's really great to hear this. And I like your example with the bicycle, because very often we come up with examples, more sort of mobile phones or computers. But I think a bicycle is very good to illustrate really the difference in terms of material used and the advances. If I look at the bikes that I rode when I was a child, are very different from nowadays. So thanks, Stuart. That was really good example to share.
We also have the tour of Britain coming through Congleton, where we manufacture the drives next week. So that's why it reminded me. Like I said, it's the same with the drives. The technology has to move on, and it only gets better. So it's good for the customers. It's good for the environment as well.
Good insights. What I'd also be interested in, Stuart, is what is sort of special for you personally about the MicroMaster? I know it's got sort of more black color. It's got a certain shape. Anything that reminds you, makes you sort of think, this is really unique or special about the MicroMaster? Anything?
So as I said, I was there at the beginning with MicroMaster. So it feels like I've known it all my life, all my working life. And I don't just associate the actual drives, the inanimate object, with anything, but it always brings back memories of the working together and the family community we had building them and the efforts we went into to making it a success. So it's not just a drive to me; it's almost part of my whole career. It's been there since the beginning. So, and I'm happy it's still there, but I think the what we've learned from MM4 has also been carried over into the new family of SINAMICS.
Good to hear that the MicroMaster is actually part of people's lives. It's not just an object for people in Congleton. That leads me on, Stuart, to somewhat the final question of our interview. We want to complete the MicroMaster Museum with a unique soundtrack. Is there a song or a tune that you personally associate with the MicroMaster?
Yeah, so the song I've picked is Sister Sledg with "We Are Family." That song always reminds me of MM4. I don't know whether it was because that's what they used to play while I was working in the factory late on a Friday, or whether it's just because the sense of family we had when we were building them and making the product a success. So, that's the family continues it with the new generation, and that is now SINAMICS.
A very nice choice of music and nice lyrics of the song. When I joined the team in Congleton about 3 years ago, I'd heard of this sort of sense of family within Congleton, and I can definitely confirm that it's a very special place to be working at. So really like the song and the lyrics. Good choice. So we've come to the end of this interview. Thank you very much, Stuart, for your insights and for sharing your personal journey with the MicroMaster. I hope that everyone who has joined listening enjoyed this episode and has enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed talking to Stuart. So time to say goodbye, and I hope we'll be in touch soon. Bye, Stuart.
Bye. Take care.